This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
All right, Joe, we are back in the OC, and we are joined by someone who is at the exact same point of their OC journey that I'm currently on. My longtime friend and frequent co-host, Brooke, now Bannon, Brooke Bannon, joining us to talk about episode
It's real,
8,
Brooke.
The Rescue.
It's real.
It's real.
Oh, yes,
It
Brooke,
is.
I'm not sure if you know Joe, but Joe is a longtime Disneydo and one of the only loyal Roaring 20 listeners.
You mean the only Roaring Twenties?
Yeah, because even you and Andrew don't
Well,
listen
thank you,
to your
Joe.
own show.
No, I don't. I can't hear myself talk.
So, Joe, I've got some real interesting news, and this will be the first time Brooke hears this information too.
Oh God.
Well, no, you know this. You don't know this about Joe. Joe, I got to tell you, I know Julie Cooper's your favorite character in all of the OC, but she does not get any points from me on this episode, even a little bit.
There's a reason why I wanted Brooke on this episode, because there's a lot of like weird mother-daughter stuff, and I feel that we need to have like a woman on to talk about that.
Oh, I'm happy to do this for you.
So I also appreciate, Brooke, that you are in the same journey, right? Like you watched all the episodes leading up to this, had never seen an episode of the OC.
Never.
Okay, so I'm glad that you're on that same journey, because as a seasoned watcher of it, and as someone who has had like almost 2 decades of distance away from when I first watched it, Julie Cooper is one of my favorite characters, and she has one of my favorite arcs. But like when I rewatched this in COVID, this is the episode where I start to really, I don't know if it's just because I was just like rethinking my entire life during like 2020, but this is the
Same.
episode where I started to really kind of endear myself to Julie Cooper. And we can get into it, and I know we will.
We should.
Yeah, because I'm like,
but like,
I have literally,
yeah.
Joe, I have 2 notes back to back that says, "Goddamn, Julie Cooper sucks," and that's when she walks in and tells like Ryan that he shouldn't be there. Hey, she shouldn't be having any guests, and she's like talking to Jimmy about like, how could you let people visit right now? And then not more than 20 seconds later, I write down, "Oh, sorry, I spoke too soon. Julie Cooper fucking sucks." When she pulls Ryan to the side and it's just like, my daughter was so happy until you came into her life and everything is terrible now. And I'm like, man, what a beautiful, like, white woman sitting on her pedestal looking down without understanding a single thing about happiness, mental health, or how her like child's life is. And just being like, this one kid came from Chino and now everything's terrible. And she was so much happier when she was complacent in a loveless, abusive relationship.
I have so many questions about the show as a whole, and how we got here. But for me, the most this episode is pretty funny, all things considered. But we start the episode learning that what's her name, Marissa,
Was
airlifted from Tijuana.
Not, that can't be a thing. Like it just can't. Like
how did that happen?
First of all, the racism, because like they have amazing healthcare down there. Like I know, like as a San Diego local, there are plenty of people who like go to TJ for for like their doctor's appointments, dentists, like plastic surgery, all of that stuff. Like they have a good enough for people with money, let's put it that way, right? So the fact that she was like airlifted across a border
across a border.
Yeah, so like doesn't make any sense to me. Also, it's the next day is like school starts.
I didn't even know it was summertime. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I thought
7 episodes in, Brooke, and it's the
time.
summer. Like they haven't even gone like the first day of school at Harbor is this episode, and it's 8 episodes into like a 20-something episode season.
I thought for sure they were already in school.
It's chaos.
This was brand new to me, this episode. I was like, wait, they haven't been in school this whole time.
No, but you are correct in being like, yeah, the fact that you would airlift people out, and something I didn't mention in the last episode, Tijuana, like at this time, right? So like at this time, the historically in the region, right, people are not going to TJ in the same way as they did in like the late 90s. Like my cousin was a college student at San Diego State in like the late 90s, and so he would like they would go all the time to Tijuana. But at this time, because it's post 9/11, right? Post 9/11, post Iraq War, you don't see it as much. The violence, the like cartel violence in TJ is a little escalated right at this point. So there's a novelty to it, but it is also kind of like a SoCal-ism to like do that, to like go to TJ, because also when you're 18 or when you're like at a certain age, you can drink before 21, and that's why people would go. But yeah, the idea of like they're being airlifted out, and also like airlifted to Newport Beach, which is easily like 150 miles away from the border, maybe more, like that just makes like at the very least we would have airlifted her to a hospital in San Diego, right? Like, or somehow gotten her to there's no reason for her to have gone, like, you know, again, people with money, so the money thing, but like because in the structure of the show you kind of forgot about the fact that like there was a week or 2 weeks in between episodes, right? So like, you know, we kind of, oh yeah, they were airlifted out. I'm like, okay, great. I guess that's believable.
Yeah, it definitely, I think it helps to have that week-long break in between because you forget about things like that. But I did not have that luxury, and I was just immediately like, what the hell is this? And we went from Ryan doing his Jesus hold of her at the end of the episode to suddenly they're in Newport Beach. And it was just very
like, did he run her back to Newport Beach?
Well, I was like, how? Like, where are they? This doesn't make sense. I thought they'd be in like a San Diego or maybe a hospital outside Tijuana or something. No, they're just all the way back in Newport. And I was like, this is insane. Also, how long has she been there? They're talking about how, you know, she can't have visitors. She needs to rest. And like, if they pump your stomach and then they pretty much kick you out, like maybe hospitals were different in 2003. I wasn't really in there much.
I mean, but this is also a rich neighborhood hospital, so they might just want to try to keep you as long as they can to get that money.
True.
So many of my notes are just how much Julie Cooper stressed me the fuck out in this episode. Like every time that she was on screen, I was shaking.
I mean, it's so that whole dynamic between Julie, Jimmy, and Marissa is so toxic.
Yes,
it's insane. Julie, like. One, Joe, I gotta learn why you like Julie because 8 episodes in, I do not see it.
Oh, trust me, you have to. You may also like Julie at the end of the series, so I don't know if that's an incentive for you to get through. Because, like,
you know how people always talk about the OC character arcs in the same breath as Game of Thrones, where they're just. Like the characters that you hate, you learn to love.
She does a lot of pretty, like, she's the villain, like, you know, she's definitely the villain parts. But in this episode, okay, so I'm gonna make the case right now. Are you ready? Are you ready for it?
Ladies and gentlemen, the case of Julie Cooper is presented by Joe Farron. Here we go.
So here, everybody, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. So Julie Cooper at this point, right? Like she's exhibiting like gold digger tendencies, but in this particular moment, the one thing that kind of rings true to me, and something I didn't pick up in the beginning of watching it, because you're just kind of focused on her narrative that she's the person who doesn't want them to be together, and and de facto becomes the villain. But something that she is that she is like, she really does care about Marissa. And in her mind, right, like there at the end of the episode, to fast forward a little bit, like Ryan brings up the fact that like, you're from Riverside, I'm from Chino, we're basically the same. We basically come from two different worlds. You've just been in this world longer. And so it's like the hatred of where you came from. So like her being like just trailer trash from Riverside. Two, it's the fact that she does care about her daughter, but it's a complicated thing because it's like she also cares about the status of being in the Newport area. Hence, like, why Jimmy embezzles and like to pay for the horse and to pay for all, pay for the, alopecia pony, and all of these things. But I can't deny that she is someone who is actually concerned about her daughter. Now, does she go about it in some crazy banana ways? Like, oh, what would be really good for her is to send her to San Diego, like to send her like 1 hour away from her family and just like, to basically institutionalize her. Yeah, that's very dramatic. But like, I don't question that it does come from a place of like actually wanting her to get better. Upon like my fourth or fifth rewatch of like this episode in my lifetime, I see a little bit more of like, no, I kind of read a little bit more like, yeah, she is trying to get Ryan away from her. But like, also from like a parent standpoint, why wouldn't you want her close to monitor her as opposed to like sending her to an institution, which like they could go visit her, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's better to keep her close than it is to like send her away and then whatever happens. But like, you do get, for me, it's the beginning of like Julie Cooper will do anything for her kids, and she is misguided in what that goodness means, but it is what she knows.
Right. I agree. And like, let's be clear in that, like, I don't think Julie is a villain for divorcing Jimmy. I think what Jimmy did is his own problem, and he deserves to have his family taken from him. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what happens. Like, fuck around and find out. He fucked around, and now he's finding out, right? Mm-hmm. So that's fine. I'm on her side with that. And like, I just like her for how she treats other people. The sending Marissa away to San Diego bit, obviously it's a shitty thing to do, but I think for 2003, the awareness around mental health and how you kind of handle trauma is very different from nowadays. So I think like in 2003, it's like, oh yeah, you need to like go somewhere and seek treatment for these kinds of things. Where now we're like, okay, you go to a therapist regularly, you can work with someone close to home. Like, you don't need to go be institutionalized. So I get that, but I think there's also a level of control Julie's trying to take back because Jimmy took so much of that from her. But she's still a bitch. Okay?
Yes.
And it's because she blames Ryan for all of these things. And I just want to know, what kind of relationship do Marissa and Ryan even freaking have? The two have like barely interacted, quite honestly. And any interaction they do have just ends in a fist fight between Ryan and Luke anyway. So like, why is she blaming everything on Ryan? Like, I do not understand that for the life of me.
Yeah, they've basically, at this point, right, they've been on one date. He betrayed her, but didn't really betray her because they're not dating.
She had a boyfriend.
Yeah, she had a boyfriend.
She's had a boyfriend the whole time.
Yeah, like it's like I'm upset that like you had a consensual sexual encounter with someone, even though technically have a boyfriend. So like they've been on one date. They have a lot of chemistry, but like they're not official. Like nothing's official about it yet. But and Julie, but see, like Julie being who she is, does read into that, right? She knows that, oh, if I don't like stamp this out right now, this is going to be a thing. And I would rather it not be a thing because of like, it coincides with like, all the shit happens when Ryan comes to town. I'm like, no, it was already kind of brewing. I mean, Jimmy was definitely stealing from people before Ryan came to town. So it was all going to come to head anyway. But you're right, Brooke. Like, it's why laser focused on Ryan. And I think again, it has to do with the fact that like she hates that aspect of herself, right? She hates where she's from. She she desperately wanted a life, desperately wanted a different life, a life where she didn't have to struggle, where her kids don't have to struggle. And like seeing Ryan come in and causing all of this chaos, it's already hanging by a thread. Everything is already endangered and hanging by a thread. So the one thing she can control, which is like her children, is by, or at least she thinks she can, is by sending him away and then sending eventually Marissa away. Matt, what are, like, given what I said, like, what, like, rebuttal, like,
this whole episode, I'm going to say this right now. This is my least favorite episode I've watched so far. It stressed me out way too much for me to find enjoyment out of it. For me, it's just, there's something about, I mean, you said this in a previous episode. She's got the worst case of RBF that I've ever seen in my life. So every time she enters a scene, she already just has this like scowl across her face that just makes me immediately be like, fuck you, Julie Cooper. And then, she says some shit, and it is, I understand that she is coming from the perspective of the information as she sees it and as she knows it. She doesn't know that Luke is a total fuckboy that's been like just fucking
everyone else seemed to know that.
Oh, according to Holly, everybody but Marissa was aware of this information in TJ. But she doesn't know that Ryan is a sweet, sweet boy. All she knows is that he's been in juvie twice in the 8 episodes that this show has been on the air, and one of them was for burning down a model home. So there's a whole lot going on there. I really do love Ryan, specifically at the end of this episode. First of all, I love that he calls up Daddy Cohen for some advice. That just makes my heart soar how much like those two get along. But he's like, look, I'm going to lay this out for you in the best way that I can possibly lay this out for you. And, even Sandy's just like, look, man, you stood up to the dragon lady known as Julie Cooper. Like, you're good. Because he was like nervous about taking the test. He's like, you just stood up to Julie Cooper. You're going to be fine on this test, dude. I'm open to the idea that my mind will change, but no, the mind has not changed at this moment of watching the show.
There was a moment when like I was kind of like, oh, maybe she's not the worst. And it was during that confrontation with Ryan and Sandy and then eventually Marissa, when she kind of like, Ryan did the dirty work of like saying all the things that needed to be said to Julie. But I think when Marissa kind of like confirmed, and you could see Julie like soften a little bit to her. And as much as she didn't like what Marissa was saying to her, she kind of like let it go and understood like, okay, this is what my daughter wants. And to your point, Joe, like I think she does want what's best for her daughter, even if it goes against what she believes to be the best thing. So that was like one moment where I was like, okay, maybe there's hope for her eventually. Sure. But like with this tragic 2003 makeup and styling, like I just can't get past how terrible she is in other parts of the show thus far. But Matt, you brought up the test, and I was so mad at Ryan for leaving that test to go break Marissa out of a hospital. Like, you're making dumb decision after dumb decision. And for what? Have they even kissed yet?
Have they kissed yet? Did they kiss by the pool?
I can't remember if they
No,
kissed
I don't think they have yet.
In the model home.
I think it's very will they won't they.
No, I thought they kissed when he actually had the date where he was like making grilled cheese for her, and they sat by the pool. Or did they get interrupted before they kissed?
No, because like I think it was this episode that like she kissed him on the cheek.
Oh yeah, no.
So I was like, have they really not kissed yet?
No, they haven't, because the kiss is coming up.
Oh,
I think
building to
their kiss is coming up.
So I do want to write down. I put money down on what I thought Brooke's favorite joke in this episode was going to be.
Okay.
Summer walks into Seth's room, and she's making fun of all the stuff that he has, and then she picks up a horse toy, and he's like, "That's not mine." And she goes, "Come on, what's his name?" And he just goes, "It's Captain Oates. Now let's keep moving."
Well, she picked up the horse, and she was like, "What's this?" And I was like, "That's clearly a buckskin Appaloosa Summer." Like, you idiot. She's like, what's its name? And it's like, I would have named it Scout. And then he was like, Mr. Oates. I was like, that's good too. So I was
are you
commenting
a horse
on that.
girl? Are you a horse girl?
I am.
So let me tell you a little bit about my best friend over here, Brooke. At one point, her goal was to combine her love of horse riding and her love of journalism to specifically cover horse races.
I did for like 2 years. Then that was my job. I was a journalist on the horse racing.
Then she found out it wasn't very lucrative.
Really?
No, it doesn't pay shit. And there were no benefits. So
see, horse girl, that's the podcast right there.
Yeah, I am a horse girl. I like to defend myself and say I'm not like your typical horse girl. Like I'm much cooler.
I'm different. I'm a different kind of horse girl.
I'm really cool. I was definitely not one of those girls that was like I had all the horse things handed to me growing up. My parents had 4 kids and 1 income, not that kind of money. So I worked like a little child slave labor to be able to ride all the time. And my parents did everything they could to make sure that I could keep doing that. So,
and that's why Horse Sense is her favorite Disney com.
It is because I thought they were all so cute and it had horses. I was like, this is fantastic. Along with the Frontier Brothers or Brothers Frontier. That's what it was. That had all 3 of them and horses,
Horse Sense is probably up in my top. It's in my top 10, but it's not in my top 5. It's the one where she can talk to horses.
Is that the one with like Thunder Jam?
Yeah.
And he can talk.
That's right. It's the name of you remember the name of the horse, but we don't remember. Yeah. It's all I also remember is that
ready to run.
Ready to
she's
run.
Ready to run. That's right. Oh, it's the Dixie Chicks. Ready to run. But they have the what is it? She's like Mexican and like her dad who died, because there's always a dad who dies.
Always, yeah.
He had what did the grandma say? The la confianza de caballos, the
horse confidence,
the confidence of horses, and I was like, I love this. Sorry, had to do a little decom pivot.
Again, can always do that too.
So Brooke, as someone who, like, again, to derail us even further, so as a horse person, what do you think about all of like this like side bit of like Caitlin needing like a horse with alopecia and like how much riding lessons and all of that stuff caught like basically her like equestrian lifestyle for a tween?
I missed a little bit of this like alopecia thing. So like what was that? Like cuz she's allergic?
Well, it's basically that like she has a pony at the stables. The pony's name is China.
Yes.
It's one of the things in the early episodes of this season where we're starting to figure out the reasons why Jimmy's stealing the money. Because it's like, I need the check for the stables. China has alopecia. We need to like go to the vet and all this stuff. And I was like, do horses? I mean, I imagine if you have hair, you can get alopecia. But like as someone who like grew up around horses, and you said like you basically engaged in like white slavery to like have a horse, like what to do riding, like what kind of money are we talking about? And then granted, like this is 2003 money, and it's Southern California, which we don't really have a horse riding culture. Unless you kind of grew up around it, like certain places in California, yes, because it's more rural, more country. So, but like we we are the Wild West, so like it's kind of there, but it's not really there. So, Brooke, as a horse person, like speak a little bit to that.
So, having a horse in any capacity is extraordinarily expensive. They are creatures that will do anything to kill themselves. Let me tell you. So it is just a constant vet bill, essentially. Very, very expensive. I've never encountered a horse with alopecia. It can happen, but very treatable. It's not like some dire situation. Like you get a special shampoo and you treat the affected area. Sometimes there's a medication, but it's not the super involved, financially straining thing by and large. I assume there could be cases where it's really intense and maybe more money, but I think this was blown a little out of proportion. And if they really wanted to, up the ante, they could have been like, her horse has vertebrae out of alignment or has, problems with his stifles or hocks and he needs injections in them. Those are very common, like high maintenance issues with a horse, especially if you're competing or riding regularly. So they could have done better there. having been a tween in writing, like it is your life. It is all you want to do. So I assume that little Shailene Woodley, her character of Caitlin, just like, I mean, we like never see her. We've seen her like once, maybe twice. She just stays at the barn. She's a barn rat. And in California, she was writing English based on her attire. So she's probably going to be a hunter jumper. She's going to be showing based on what her parents had. She's going to have all the elite stuff. That is like a little bit of an elitist cult. When you get into those high ranking, like hunter jumper, circuits, they were probably spending a shit ton of money on that. Like thousands of dollars a month would be my prediction.
Did you write English or Western?
English.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I grew up riding dressage, and then in like middle school, I switched over to do the hunters and jumpers, and then competed in that all the way through college.
All right.
I love this.
All this because of a Seth Cohen joke.
I know, all that for, the Buckskin Appaloosa Breyer model horse that he had.
Which I hope that you continue to watch, Brooke, because Captain Oates shows up many times more.
I was actually going to ask. So at this point in time, Brooke and I are at the exact same spot of the show. I won't start episode 9 until we know when we're going to record the episode 9 episode. But I'm curious, Brooke, are you pausing at this point, or are you just going to keep on rolling with the OC fun?
It's fun because my husband Andy was watching with me last night because he kind of like saw pieces of the OC as it was airing. He was in high school when it came out, so it was like this huge cultural thing that I very much missed out on. He was like, "Oh, like, do you think you're going to keep watching?" And I was like, "No." And then like today, I was like, "I kind of want to watch it."
because I was thinking of it in this sense of like, I know that you're going to be back on a future episode for sure. So I'm like, is she going to pause and wait until I'm like, hey, here's the next episode you're going to do and do a giant binge? Or the next time that you come on, are you going to have closer to Joe's level of knowledge of character growth and I'm going to be the odd man out?
I will probably keep watching, not as like I really binged over the past few days. I don't know that I'll keep up quite that level of binge, but I'll probably keep it pretty steady. I just think this shit with Marissa and Ryan is so stupid and hilarious. They're like, I gotta see where it goes. I'm like, they haven't even kissed yet. Like,
yeah,
what happens after they kiss for the first time? How much more dramatic? Like, someone's already been shot. Someone's OD'd accidentally. There's a divorce. There's an embezzling. There's arson. Carjacking.
And they weren't even in school yet. It's all the summer, right?
Let me ask you that, Brooke, because again, you and I are in the same spot right now. I have been amazed at how much has happened in such a short period of time. And was also really shocked by how few episodes there actually are of this show that in my mind ran for like 10 years, but was like,
how many episodes are in a season?
There's 20 on average. I think it's 25, 24, 23 on average. Mm-hmm. There's only 92 episodes across 4 seasons. Like, it's for 2003, a very short run of episodes.
I was going to say, they don't make them like that anymore with the 20 episodes.
No. Letterkenny drops 6 episodes, and it's like, good luck. Wait 9 more months for the next batch.
Yeah. I mean, I'm watching Handmaid's Tale right now, and it's like, 10 episodes a season, if that. Yeah. So
I think that 10 now is becoming the excessive number. You're like, oh, you couldn't tell this in 8?
It's stupid. But yeah, episode 8. And school's finally started. I thought school was happening the whole time. So.
I just have my biggest beef, if I do have one with this episode, because it is my least favorite episode so far, is like, you got the Julie Cooper of it all, and that like sucks up so much anxiety, like so much stuff. Like, I wrote down at one point, I can't even wrap my head around so much shit has happened in this episode, and I'm not even past the 50% of the episode point. Like, Julie Cooper rolls in, gives Ryan a bunch of... There's so much that happens just in the hospital in the first half of this episode. And then just like we've got to rescue Marissa from therapy angle or whatever was just like, this is so fucking dumb. It like, I felt like this...
It would never happen.
No, and this episode just felt so like... Even at its most dramatic, there are like funny subplots happening that like bring some type of levity to most of the episodes. And I felt like this didn't really have it. Like, beyond like the quick Captain Oates line, beyond like Summer trying to run an interference, which was basically just her rattling off a crazy dream. Like, there's not a lot of joy in this episode because it's all of the Marissa shenanigans. It's all of the Julie Cooper hates Ryan shenanigans. It's the Ryan trying to get into school shenanigans. And now we're like getting even deeper into this. Like, is Sandy and Kirsten going to like implode as a couple?
Don't even get me started on
Well, I was going to
Kirsten.
say, you texted me and let me know that you hate Kirsten and you hate Marissa.
I hate Kirsten. I mean, we talk about Julie Cooper being like a crazy mom, but Kirsten is a little batshit, if you ask me. Like, I think part of Julie's problem, especially with like her very toxic relationship with Marissa, is that she wants Marissa to be what she never was. And so there's a lot of like control dynamics at play there, which suck. But Kirsten is like this, I don't want to say a covert narcissist, but she is sneaky in her behavior and her intentions. Like, I totally get not wanting some strange boy in your house. Like, I totally get it. And so I don't fault her for that, but I like that she warms up to Ryan a bit. But this whole like living next door to like your high school crush and being super friendly, I'm like, red flag. And so when all of that goes down between Jimmy and Julie, God, these names are getting confusing. And she like wants to go be hero to him. I'm just like, oh no, bitch. Because like Sandy, for everything that we've seen, he's a great dude.
Oh, Sandy.
He's just like a good guy.
Sandy, at the end of the day, is probably the biggest thing that keeps me watching the show, is because I really am like, Sandy Cohen is a great dude. He is a great dude.
He's a total palate cleanser compared to like the rest of these like weirdos. So like she's telling him like Kirsten is like trying to influence what job he takes a little bit and trying to use like, you know, her own wealth as like reasons for him to not do what he wants to do. And I don't think she means that quite maliciously, but I think there's insecurities there and I want to know why. And then we find out why. And that's because she lets Jimmy kiss her and then like totally downplays it and doesn't even tell Sandy. Like, even if it was something that was like, hey, it was a mistake, he's going through a lot and he just like did this stupid thing, like you still tell your husband that. You be upfront about it.
I've been mostly pro Kirsten throughout this. I didn't like her in the first episode. I didn't like how much she hated Ryan. Pretty much since she visited Ryan in juvie and like became endeared to Ryan, I've been on a like yay Kirsten track. But the moment that like he comes into the house and is like, she is my coworker, there's nothing there, you need to not be crazy. I don't get weirded out by like you and Jimmy because I know nothing happens between the two of you. And she gives that look and he's like, did something happen? And then she just flat out denies and lies. I'm like, ooh, bad call. Like, that is the prime time to be like, Jimmy kissed me. I shut it down. It wasn't a romantic thing. And I've been trying to keep as much of a distance from him since. It would have been like, all right, cool. Because it's not like Sandy Cohen's a guy who's going to like go next door, not bang on the door and beat the shit out of Jimmy Cooper. Like
can't even do that because he's not there anymore. He's not next door. So.
But like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the Sandy Cohen style. Like, Sandy Cohen already doesn't like him. It would just be more of a reason to not like Jimmy Cooper and keep moving on with his life.
It's just, it was really gross to me that she did that, didn't tell Sandy, and then had the audacity who then like accuse him of having something with what was her name, Rachel?
But do you think that that's guilt?
From his
Do you think
job?
that's internalized guilt coming out?
Yes, absolutely it is. It's her own guilt. And so that I was like, you suck. You really kind of suck.
So Brooke, what you're saying is that, you know, what you're saying is Kirsten's covert narcissism is disguised as altruism, like some kind of congressman? Okay.
Exactly. You know, the next line she better say, it's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. And if she doesn't, I'm not continuing the series.
I think that my favorite text last night, as Brooke and I were just kind of rattling off the insanity of episode 8, is she just goes, I'm glad her daddy fired her.
Yeah. Seriously, I think he had every right to fire her ass. She thinks like she runs the world. And I'm like, you kind of suck, honestly. And it's frustrating. Because Kirsten kind of sucks, Julie definitely sucks, and then they have the female principal. Is it Dr. Kim?
Yeah, Dr. Kim.
Yeah. And she sucks too. She's like judgmental and
a weird flip hairdo. Like,
oh my god, just gross. And it's just like, why are all of these adult women so nasty? Like, I really don't like how they are portraying women. And the only other woman we kind of see is what's her face, Caleb's, 24-year-old girlfriend who looks 37. And she tries to get with his
very pedo, very like
it's just vibes. Weird. So how they're portraying adult women to me is gross. But that's kind of like early 2000s men
I was
writing
not
women.
prepared for this. I was not prepared for Kirsten hate. Like, because I really like Kirsten a lot. She tries. Also, okay, I'm about to say that I was going to say that I'm not gonna be an apologist for Kirsten, but what I'm about to say
But
is
you're
gonna
going
sound
to.
like it. Her dad is Caleb Nickel, one. So like, that is probably nurture and nature, to lie like that. She knows how good she has it with Sandy. So that's also a situation there. But everything that happens, spoiler alert, but there are things that are going to happen in their marriage as we get further along that are going to be like really cringe, because it's like, this is one of the situations where it's like, we don't need to have like the marriage turmoil for drama. Like, there's other things that we can do for drama besides marriage stuff. But I was just not expecting Kirsten hate. And I'm so glad you brought up
It's
Dr.
only
Kim.
episode 8. So
Yes,
there's
only
plenty of
episode
time
8.
to change.
I'm so glad you brought up Dr. Kim, because like, what is it? Dr. Kim and Dr. Burke, like, they're like, first of all, they're the two women of color that we finally see in the series. And they also are professionals, right? They're both doctors, so good for them. But like, Dr. Kim being like, I think you're better suited to Newport Union. Like, it's like, I think that you should go back to the trash where the trash are from. Like,
yeah, like fuck
I don't
you.
think we can help you here. And part of me wanted to be like, then your school's like not worth helping. Your school's not worth all this money we're paying if you think that you can't help someone who obviously has like, is bright. But just like you, Brooke, I was like, stay there. Like, the test is an hour. What is really going to happen within like an hour and a half that you're taking this test?
Their fucking half-baked escape plan that like doesn't really make that much sense to begin with.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And I don't understand why Ryan's willing to sacrifice so much for a girl he hasn't like kissed, and has caused so much like strife for him. And like, I mean, It's only been this summer. They've only known each other for a few weeks at best.
It brings to mind a complaint that my friend once leveled against Cloverfield, where he's like, this is an entire movie where a character drags not just himself, but his best friends into complete and total danger for a girl who broke up with him. Like, that is like what are you
That's
doing?
what we're seeing.
Like, what are you doing? This girl broke
And
your heart,
also-
and you're moving tomorrow. Like, it's not like why are you sacrificing all of this? It doesn't make any sense.
It's the love of his life, Matt. Don't you remember? They're on the train to Coney Island. Come on.
Exactly. Like, it's just that, no, I agree with you. Like, that stuff drives me absolutely nuts. And it does make me feel like, am I just not a romantic? Like, I'm just like, ooh, gross, go to school. Like,
I mean, I think maybe, so I think when this was out, lots teens are watching it, right? And I think teenagers eat that kind of like drama up. I mean, look at Romeo and Juliet, right? Like, that kind of stuff sells to them because that is romance in their mind, because they don't know any better. Their brains are not fully formed. So I think it works for teens, but as adults watching it, we can be like, this is so, like, you are really dumb.
Yeah.
Look at your life. Look at your choices. How embarrassing for
and
you.
Also,
but teens don't see it like that. They're like, this is my everything, and she's gonna go to San Diego, and I need to save her.
and this is a girl who, like, over the course of, look, Marissa episodes 2 through 5, I kind of get it, right?
Sure.
Marissa, who like walks in on you having a very weird pedo kiss, and just suddenly in a blink of an eye is like, well, I'm going to lose my virginity to this fuck boy that I used to date then. Or like, uh-oh, mommy and daddy are getting divorced, so let me down a bunch of painkillers and go out drinking. Like, not exactly a sure bet, and maybe does need to be under some supervision.
Girl has some issues, and rightfully so. But
not stigmatizing her issues, just saying maybe you're not the best person to deal with
mental
her troubles
health,
right now.
Yeah. And similarly with Summer.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about the show when it came out, but I knew about Rachel Bilson, and all these people seem to love her. And so I thought Summer was going to be this great, like, lovable character that comes on. And then I was like, what the fuck?
Same girl.
Like, this bitch. Like oh my God, she gets on my nerves. I like that she softened towards Seth in, episode 7 when they thought Marissa was dead, which odd that they showed barely any concern. They didn't even run to her when they thought she was dead. But
Yeah. They didn't
anyway.
like go to help Ryan like Jesus carry her. Like,
Oh my God, so stupid.
He's got it. He's got it.
But so she softened towards Seth in this episode, which, long overdue. I thought she's been terrible to him. But like, I just can't, like, I don't. So Holly said everyone knew about Luke cheating. Did Summer know? Also, Summer's the one who had the fucking pills. So why isn't Julie directing her anger at Summer and Summer's mom? Because they were Summer's mom's pills. So like, we're just going to gloss over that. We're just going to pretend it never happened.
Yeah.
And it's all Ryan's fault. I don't get it.
No, and none of it makes sense. But I mean, I can't wait to see what happens next at the exact same point. And that's what is the most frustrating thing about this fucking show is that I feel like it's lucky that I'm doing this as a podcast, because I think that if I was watching it in real time, there would have been a point where I'm just like, I am done with these kids from Newport Beach and need to just move on to something else.
They are very frustrating, and the adults are frustrating too.
Yeah, except for Sandy. It's really just about Sandy and Seth for me still at this point.
Well, my problem with Sandy is he's a bit of a pushover.
Yeah.
As soon as Kirsten was like, insinuated that something was going on with Rachel, I would have had to, put that bitch on notice. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, let her know. I'd have to let her know.
I think
I think he could do that.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
All right, so let's dive into probably the easiest version of this segment we've ever done, which is figuring out what the song of the episode is, because, man, there was like almost no songs in this episode. We got 3. Paul Westerberg did the song Mr. Rabbit that's playing when Summer comes into Seth's room and starts fucking with Captain Oaks. Air did the song Les Femmes de Regard. I think I got that right. Who knows? That's playing probably terrible. That's playing in the restaurant when Sandy gets ambushed by Jimmy and Kirsten. And then in the final scene, we hear Guster's Keep It Together. I think we're all just going to pick the Guster song since it was the only song that even got a spotlight of the 3. But Brooke, you did have I texted you a little too late. You had already watched the episode. And I was like, oh, by the way, we pick a song of the episode. You were like, there were songs in this episode.
Yeah, I was like, there were songs. Like, I don't even remember. But my husband pointed out, he's like, oh, this is a Guster song. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go with that one. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one I wrote down. I do love Guster. And this is pretty much off the most mainstream album they ever had, so which I think was also called Keep It Together. It's the one with the hummingbird on the cover. But
oh, I love hummingbirds.
Yeah, but yeah, good song, good band. How about you, Joe? Are you gonna go against us, or are you also?
No, it's the Guster song.
I do remember episode 1. I think it is. All American New Jack Swing Swing was on there, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!"
So that's the thing that I'm waiting for. And according to Joe and last week's guest, they have promised that like if you get to about midway through season 1 and then beyond that point, you will have these like it's 2004 type songs just like blasting up.
Did I just I have a playlist of like music like from like 2003, and it's called Did I Just Walk Into a Hollister? Because it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be like, I remember because it comes from the first time I ever walked into a Hollister. It was like you walk in and it's like dark and the cologne and everything, and the song, and it literally, as I was walking in, it's the opening guitar riff of Dare You to Move, Welcome to the planet. I'm like, where am I?
That's an experience.
It was very experiential, and I have to give it to Hollister for that reason alone.
So
Hollister killed it in the early 2000s with that like very immersive experience. Good for them.
So I had a friend who was in a band called Racing Kites, and they never blew up, but they were like, they would do the Warped Tour, they would play at the Bamboozle festivals. They were always like being scouted but never signed, but they somehow got onto like Hollister and Abercrombie Fitch Radio, like when they had that touch screen. So my friend would call me up sometimes and be like, do you want to go to the King of Prussia Mall? And we would be there for 8 hours because he would walk into the stores, put his song on like the store jukebox, walk to the next store, put one of their songs on the radio jukebox. We'd grab some like Annie Ann's pretzels and then just do that again for like 8 hours because they were getting paid like 2 cents a play inside the stores or whatever. And that was him trying to make even a little bit of money off of his bands.
Matt, I do something similar. When I go to the Apple store, I go to all the phones and I open the podcast and I download Fright School onto everything.
I have done the same thing inside of Apple store.
And I've like 5 stars, 5 stars, everything.
Fraud. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, speaking of the Fright
I hear enterprising hustler, but then, I'm not Anna Delvey. So.
I'll take that. None of us can be Anna Delvey.
All right, so speaking of Joe's podcast fraud, Brooke, let's talk about what you have to promote. Have you ever been on a podcast as a regular co-host, or maybe some shows that we could try to revive?
Will you ever be on a podcast?
Yeah, will I ever be a co-host on a regular podcast?
I see the Yeti mic, so she knows what she's doing. Okay.
I took it seriously once upon a time. I used to be a co-host on a regular podcast, on 2 of them, actually. The first one being Disneydo, which is a very fun, adults-only Disney podcast. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but listen to it and it will.
My friend Daniel says hello, by the way.
Oh, I bet he does. I bet he does. Daniel, that guy.
If a podcast could have a villain,
many a time.
If there could be a villain of a podcast, it would have been Daniel in the Disney. No,
I love that he was so interactive. He's a good time. I love Daniel, but I love to give him a hard time. That's like my favorite thing. So Disneydo, and then obviously Roaring 20s. Hopefully that one comes back soon, but it's all about talking about the dumb shit you do in your 20s, because it is surprisingly the worst decade. And I mean that in like a fun and terrible way when I say worst.
This is not a read or anything, but like, are you and Andrew still in your 20s?
Oh, I am definitely not. And he's running short on his days. I'm proudly in my 30s. I've loved my 30s thus far. So I can definitely speak on being in my 20s. Andrew's wrapping up. He's got another 3 months.
I'm working on how we're going to bring Roaring 20s back. And I think that is going to become a little bit more of a nostalgia and reactionary based thing, where it's like, like one of my favorite episodes of the early run was Brooke and Andrew going down a website list of like 20 lessons you learn in your 20s and like sharing their stories based on those lessons. So I think it's going to become a lot more of like, not about living in your current 20s, but looking back on your 20s and what you probably could have learned from
and
that.
having hopefully learned from
and hopefully that will also open up the door to like bring in friends as guests to talk about like the shit that they did in their 20s. Like it's going to be way more of a looking back on it as opposed to living in it.
That was always the intention, was to kind of get our friends and everything on there to kind of talk about what we all did in our 20s. And then also I want people in their 20s to come on and talk about the dumb shit they're currently doing.
You need like Saved by the Bell, the new class. You need like Roaring 20s, the new class.
Exactly. And Brooke, we end every episode, because the OC was such a giant pop culture phenomenon, talking about what pop culture phenomenon you're currently obsessed with. It doesn't have to be recent. It could be of any point, as long as at one point it was a pop culture phenomenon.
Oh, there's something happening right now.
Okay.
And it was hot off the press as of last night that I
know what this is.
And just finger licking good. And it is Greta Thunberg taking down Andrew Tate. And I have just ascended into the heavens.
Did you see the wiki page?
It is the most beautiful thing. with like loss, yeah, with like his MMA record. Hell yeah, I did. It is just the greatest, like fucking karma, baby. Like you are first of all, like you got fucking rocked, dude. Just let it go. And then to expose yourself so hard through a pizza box. Like how embarrassing for you, you giant piece of shit. Like,
okay, so this was going to be mine as well. But only because, so I just want to talk about it because like he was on the run for human trafficking. Like, can you explain a little bit of like why the authorities were looking for him and why he was in hiding to begin with? I guess because that I don't understand.
Yeah, that was new
like,
information
and I know like
to me actually.
Yeah, I also don't like Greta. Like Greta picks fights with people in the best way, and I'm just like I love that. I love that that's where we are in our world. Is that like this like teenage environmentalists will like, basically chastises world leaders, but then also will like come for you on Twitter.
Did you see her tweet
like,
today that was like, don't forget to recycle your pizza box?
Yeah. Because he said in his video, he's like, I'm not going to recycle these. And she's like, this is why you should.
This is why you should like just take the pizza out of the box before you expose yourself on the internet. But like what? So he was human trafficking? Like why was he being hunted?
So I'm not sure of all the details. I've just been really enjoying all the roasts of him. But there is, he's been pretty well known to be in connection with people that do some pretty shady things. Like think very Epstein-ish. And kind of like the dealing of young women and just treating them horribly. He's been involved with men like that. I mean, his whole platform is based off of like, just completely debasing women and making them these objects and being an alpha male. He's trash. Anyway, he made a video, and I don't know how long ago it was, but talking about how he was going to move to Romania because they had more lax like rape laws in Romania. So a woman, and he cited the Me Too movement as his excuse to go over there. So a woman, if you're accused of rape in Romania and, the authorities go to the man after it's been reported and they're like, hey, did you do this? He can be like, oh no, I thought it was totally consensual. Like I didn't know that she wasn't into it. And they'll just drop it. So that's why he wanted to move there. And he says that in the video, that he wanted to be free and that the Me Too movement doesn't protect women. It's just destroyed the safety of men. And so he was going to go to Romania. And obviously, with his connections, they were kind of like, no, fuck you. We don't really want you around. So I guess at some point recently, he went over there and they didn't know. There were like rumors about him being there, but no one could confirm. And then after his little video with the pizza box from the Romanian pizza chain, they got his ass in connection with this whole investigation.
And he just admitted that like he has intention to do that, right? So like so his lax laws the lax laws don't apply to him because he literally told on himself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you can't like it's like transporting a minor to a state that has like lower age of consent in order to have sex with them, right? Like your intention.
And like the investigation was done, I think, across several countries maybe, but mostly in the US. So it's like they'll probably extradite him back here for trial. I think he's gonna get got in jail, which like darn, I probably shouldn't say that. Shouldn't wish death upon anyone, but like karma's a bitch. Hopefully he's a bottom for
Wendy Williams over here being like death to all of them. Like,
man, this really you guys totally in sync with your pop culture phenomenon. Meanwhile, I'm just here to shamelessly promote that at the time we're recording this, season 5 of The Circle just started up, and I'm all in yet again on this dumb reality game show that I love so much.
It's like you have like this, it's like you think it's your show, and so you have to promote it, and it's like you don't have to do that.
But I mean, it's becoming my show.
I've never seen an episode of The Circle.
Joe,
me either, and I don't intend to.
I feel like the two of you would love The Circle so much more than you realize, because it's like, it's all the things that you love about like a trashy reality show mixed with all the things that make a show like Survivor so interesting to watch, because it is so much about like strategy and gameplay at the same time. So that for those of you who don't know, because Netflix has just like stopped promoting what the fuck this show is anymore, it's 8 people in an apartment. They can't see each other. They can't speak to each other. The only way that they can communicate is through like a social media app called The Circle, and they can choose to go in as themselves or go in catfishing as somebody else. And throughout a series of conversations and like forced activities through the app, people try to basically suss out like who isn't being genuine, and also they try to plant seeds of deceit.
This just feels like real life talking to
I have
people
like
on the internet.
anxiety listening to this.
But it's so like, what's nice is that the more wholesome the people are, the more untouchable they are. So like you get very invested in just seeing like good people rise to the top and like bad people sink to the absolute bottom.
See, as a gay man who uses sex apps and is constantly trying to figure out if I'm being catfished, I feel like
this is like very close to reality.
this. I don't know. I think I would just have like, anxiety about
Trust
it.
issues.
Yeah. I need Love is Blind, but I need it to be people who are just regular looking,
Yes.
like not models. Or
Oh, you mean
anything.
like not like that show Sexy Beasts, where it's like they're made up to look ugly, but guess what? Every one of them is a
They're all
model
hot.
underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all hot. It's so stupid.
It's like we're going to show that the beauty is what's on the inside, but also don't worry, they're all pretty. Pick whoever.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
You're gonna bag a hottie. It's fine.
well, that is episode 8. Thank you so much, Brooke, for not just watching the episode,
course.
but like watching 7 episodes leading up to it to really enhance the conversation.
Gotta do what you gotta do, you know?
And we will be back next week with even more white people problems. Probably.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.